Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at console mode on the all-new RedMagic Nova gaming tablet. Now, if you're not familiar with this tablet, that's totally fine. It actually just released. I made one video on it. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link in the description. But basically, what we've got here is one of the most powerful tablets on the market right now, given the chipset they opted to use. It's also got active cooling, just like most of the other RedMagic devices on the market. Totally new cooling system for a tablet. They definitely beefed it up because they've got more surface area to work with and a 10.9-inch 2.8K display. If you want to learn a little more about the tablet just in tablet form, I'll leave a link to that first video I created down below. But when it comes to the overall specs, the new RedMagic Nova is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. We've got the 3.4 gigahertz version, so it is the top of the line version. If you're not familiar, Qualcomm actually released two different versions, one at 3.4 gigahertz on the big core and 1 gigahertz on the GPU. The other one has a lower clock, but they also offer this with a few different RAM and storage variants, so you can get either 12 gigs of RAM, 16, or 24. The lowest end version with 12 gigs is only $499, and when you compare that to something like the Galaxy Tab S9 right now, it is coming in at a much lower price tag. It's also got a 144 Hz, 10.9-inch, 2.8K display, 10,100 milliamp hour battery, and it's running Android 14. Now, in order to use this in console mode or desktop mode, there are a few things that I like to kind of pair up with it. I love having a wireless controller, so I use an Xbox controller. Keyboard and mouse does come in really handy, but one of the most important things here is a USB Type-C to HDMI adapter. This is the one that I've been using with a lot of my devices recently. They're under 20 bucks over on Amazon. 3 USB ports, HDMI. It's also got a full size and a micro SD card slot. It'll do up to 1440p, 120 hertz. I actually think it'll do 4K 60, but I haven't really utilized that much with this adapter. But either way, let's go ahead and get this thing connected. Basically, all I've done here is just plug that adapter into HDMI and then the other end into the tablet. You can also have power come into this adapter so you can keep that battery topped up. I've been using it a lot without a power supply, and I mean, with that 10,000 milliamp hour battery, we get a ton of runtime out of this thing, even in dock mode. Okay, so now that we've got this connected over HDMI, you can see it's just basically mirroring the screen. We don't get that full screen experience over here on the larger monitor. But there are a couple modes here. Now, if you go into developer options, you can set this up as kind of a desktop mode, but it's very basic. It's just the basic Android desktop, nothing like DeX. Luckily, RedMagic does have their console mode or their host mode built in here. If we go to Game Space, while it's plugged in, you'll see Mirror Host mode. I'm going to activate it, and now on the larger screen, we're going to get that full screen set up. And of course, on the built-in screen, we can still use it separately, but over here on the monitor, we've got a much larger setup. Nice little launcher right here, and I've customized some of these icons. You can go through, download new ones if you want to. We can also add any kind of application here. So if you take a look, I've actually got Netflix right here. So if I did want to watch on a big screen while this is in host mode or console mode, not a problem. But the main thing I do here is play games. I've got some emulators, native Android games. I've got some cloud gaming and some streaming like Steam Link here. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we do have a couple options. Since I've got a mouse plugged in, I can change that sensitivity right here. And if we launch a game, let's just do something easy. We'll go with Minecraft. Down here, you'll see we've got our performance mode. So we've got an Eco, Balanced, Rise mode. Rise is going to give us the best performance. We can also go into Diablo mode before we activate host mode, but Rise really does a great job. I've also got an on-screen FPS counter, kind of a monitor here. That way we can see exactly what's going on if the game doesn't have a built-in counter. More keyboard and mouse settings, and we can lock the main screen. So if we want to lock the tablet screen, we can do it from here. But when it's time to go back, we can always just hit that home button. It'll bring us right back into console mode. And when it comes to the resolution in host mode, the monitor I'm on right now is actually 1440p at 144 Hz, but I think this kind of locks it down to 1440 120 or 4K 60. I'm not sure if we can go up to 120 at 4K over USB Type-C here, but 1440 is plenty for an Android device like this. And I wanted to show you how this thing performs because we're not losing anything from that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 being in console mode here. I know Minecraft is an easier one to run, but I always like to show it off. And with this setup here, I'm actually at 120 FPS. You can see the on-screen FPS counter up top. 18 chunks, I didn't have to turn anything down. This 8 Gen 3 does have quite enough power for something like Minecraft, and it shouldn't be an issue for a game like Roblox if you play that. But next up, we've got Asphalt. I guess they're calling it Asphalt Unite now, but it's basically the same thing as Asphalt 9. They probably added some new music and new cars. From the settings, I've got this at best quality. Next up, Call of Duty Mobile. High settings, frame rate is set to high, and usually this would run at 60 FPS, but we're a little over 70 right now. If we take the frame rate to the ultimate setting, it actually takes the graphics down, and that's just how it works with this game. But it will run at 90 FPS on this setup over HDMI. And one thing I've noticed with these RedMagic devices versus something like Samsung with DeX is games like Call of Duty Mobile do look a little degraded over on DeX, but when you compare it to this looks like it's full resolution. I always forget that Fortnite is available for Android, and right now we're at medium settings, 90 FPS. And once we enable 90 FPS mode, if you were set at high, it'll take it down to medium, but I still think it looks great here. And being able to run this at 90 FPS on a mobile device is pretty cool. But I also tested this at high, 60 FPS, and it does run really smooth. With that active cooler built in, and right now we are in Rise mode with the CPU, I showed you those RedMagic settings, basically just takes the governor up to performance. You can run this all day long. That little fan is spinning up, and you really can't hear it unless you put your ear up to it. It's a lot quieter than the RedMagic phone devices. But it really comes down to the space they have inside of this tablet to add a much larger cooler than they can with their gaming phones. And of course, we had to test out some emulation here. PSP 10x resolution using the Vulkan backend. Jak and Daxter, this is one of those games that natively ran at 30 FPS. I've tested the God of War franchise on this. You can run basically any PSP game as long as it's compatible with the PPSSPP emulator at 10x on this device. And when it comes to GameCube emulation, using the official Dolphin emulator, this tablet will handle it just fine. But the last emulator I wanted to show off in this video was PS2. I'm using Neither SX2. We're at 4x resolution using OpenGL. And in turn, that takes our PlayStation 2 resolution up to 2560 by 1792 with Gran Turismo 4. If you're running at 4x with other games, it might be a little lower or higher depending on the aspect ratio the developer used with PS2 games. But either way, I mean, we're upscaling this on a mobile tablet. It looks great on this external display. I completely understand that there are people out there that don't like cloud gaming for one reason or another, but I did want to show at least something running here. So we've got Xbox Cloud Gaming with Forza Horizon 5. I'm connected to my 5 GHz network here, and the RedMagic Nova tablet actually has Wi-Fi 7 built in. I was going to use Ethernet with an adapter, but Wi-Fi is working pretty decent here. So if you're into another streaming service like GeForce Now or something else on the market, it's going to work great. So obviously it's not a full-fledged desktop interface like Samsung has with Samsung DeX, but this can definitely get you by when it comes to gaming. This was known as console mode a few generations back, but I guess they call it host mode now on the tablet. But either way, we do have a nice little game launcher with host mode. And again, if you enable developer settings, you can actually set up desktop mode, but it's really basic. It's just the built-in Android desktop mode. So far with my testing, I've been able to do up to 1440p, 120 Hz, which again, I do think is more than enough for a tablet. And if there's anything else you want to see tested on the new RedMagic Nova tablet, just let me know in the comments below. I wouldn't mind testing out some x86 emulation to see what kind of PC games we could play on this. There's several different applications out there to allow us to do that. We could also install Linux, so yeah, if you want to see something like that, let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in checking out my first video, it really didn't have anything to do with kind of console mode. Here's just all on the tablet itself. I'll leave a link in the description to that video. I'll also leave a link to RedMagic's official website, but that's going to wrap it up for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.